Hello, God bless, and welcome. I'm Kevin Haggerty. This is the God Logic Project. This is our first episode, first ever episode. It's the first of a three-part series with Mike Houston, an interview with my friend Mike Houston. We're going to discuss race, politics, police brutality, immigration, a lot of hot-button topics from the left and the right point of view, although we're both, in a sense, kind of centrist, I guess. But I hope you enjoy it, and here it is. God bless.
Shut up, Kevin.
Welcome to God Logic Radio. My special guest is also my friend Mike Houston. In the interest of transparency, to quote Obama, in the interest of transparency, and this being a transparent interview process, I should disclose that Mike and I are friends in the real world, so that we know each other and have had some of these conversations before. How you doing, Michael Houston?
I'm doing quite well.
How's the weather in Tampa? Way over in Tampa.
Right now it's sunny and bright, but we have a gloomy forecast for later on today.
It rained, welcomed rain because my air conditioning's been off for a week last night, so it's not the air conditioner had a chance to catch up here. The broken air conditioner
for a week.
Yeah, we've been out of air conditioning for a week at the church, so I've had to endure some. It went from 91 to 85, so it's not terrible. And it's not bad at night, but I look forward to having air conditioning again. Well, you and I spoke, and there's a couple topics I want to talk about. I have no notes to speak of, except that the first issue I'd like to speak about is particularly the Trump. We want to look at Trump being president, which I think we can agree neither of us are huge fans of. I think he's doing a good job. You don't, I'm guessing. But I want to look at the election process itself. What were your thoughts as a Democrat or as someone from the left wing and I from the right wing? What were your thoughts of that whole election process? What did you think of the process? How the heck did we get to choose from Hillary and Donald Trump? How did that end up being, in this day and age, our only two choices?
Well, like a lot of questions, it's a complicated one. I mean, basically, I think it's just citizen and voter apathy that led us to only having those two choices. I mean, of all the brilliant people in politics and all the brilliant people in this country, to narrow it down to those two, basically, I think just boils down to apathy. I think that this may not be a popular thing, but I think that to a degree, the system's rigged. I think that Trump was right. Obviously the Democrat nomination or Democratic nomination was robbed, in my opinion, from Bernie Sanders.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, and I think that if Bernie Sanders and Trump were head to head, I think that it would have been a different story. I think that Democrats underestimated the population's loathing of Hillary Clinton. And that's what led us to where we are right now. Just to clarify something very shortly, I would say that I am more of independent, or should I say somewhere in between independent and Democrat, as opposed to a dyed-in-the-wool all the way to the right Democrat.
Yeah, I would agree with that because you and I have already had some of these conversations, and we do have some very common ground. So I just recently, just a few days ago, took a ribbing, maybe a week ago now, took a ribbing from one of my right-wing buddies. It was over dinner. I said, I think Trump's doing a good job. And he celebrated the fact that I've changed my mind on Trump, which I really haven't. I think it's probably a necessary interruption to the political process in this country. But the problem is that we've gotten to the point where we need an interruption to our political process to the extent that Trump has done it. So, or presumably is doing it. So I think you're probably more liberal than I am, and I'm guessing I'm more conservative than you are, but I wouldn't pin either of us to any of the fringes. And I think that's why you and I have been able to have relatively civil and constructive opinions. So the idea that people loathe Hillary, I'm interested to know, do you think it's because they loathed her personally, or were they angry at the political process that put us in that position?
Well, I don't think the loathing of her, as I said, or as I coined it, I think that it's been a longer issue. I don't think that the loathing of her is something that is recent. I think that it started, of course, with her husband.
Mm-hmm.
I think that most of the country saw her husband as dishonest and basically would do anything to stay in power. I think a lot of America just thought that he was too slick, I guess. And by default, I believe that they transferred their dislike of Bill onto his wife.
I would probably agree.
I think that's a decades-long thing, over a decade-long thing.
Yeah, and I would agree with you to the extent that paints her as a bit of a victim. I think she is almost like a political cyborg, right? She knows exactly what to say, how to say it, when to say it. She has leverage in the media, I would say, and that's one of our other topics, so we won't go down that rabbit hole yet. But I think that her and Bill as partners have consistently been polished or studied in the political process and really the exploitation of the political process in the United States. And I think that and I'll use the word embarrassing as it is, that Donald Trump's
as it was coined, the Clinton machine.
Yeah, and so you look at things like the post-election, the Clinton Foundation is, if it's not closed, it's closing, from what I understand. Makes you wonder why did the donations stop? Because they fully expected her to be president, like I did, and like everybody I think did. I was as shocked as everyone on election night. I stayed up all night for it, and can't really tell you how I felt, except that I did feel in a strange way a sense of relief that the political machine, that's the Clintons and both parties, the Republicans and the Democrats, was halted, right?
Yeah, well, everybody wanted to see her lose. I think that we just didn't know we wanted to see her lose badly enough to elect Trump.
Yeah, that's well said. That's exactly right. So I didn't want her to win, and I voted for Trump begrudgingly. I didn't want her to win, but the alternative was that Trump won, and that was equally unpalatable. I guess I kind of would use the analogy of a door labeled death and a door labeled possible death. Most people are going to pick the door labeled possible death. I'll take my chances with the unknown quantity in this case. And I think that's probably the thinking behind him being elected. Now, I think that people that voted for him, the polls did not reflect accurately, which way the country was leaning, because people that were voting for Trump were embarrassed to say so. So I think I
don't think so.
While they knew they were going to vote for Trump, they didn't want to say it on the exit polls because they didn't want to be ostracized in any way, or even maybe perhaps just involved in the argument at all.
Oh, I don't agree with that. I think that a lot of the people that voted for Trump were proud of the fact, they were trying to, or at least in their minds, trying to reaffirm the way things were, or the way things that they perceived that they should be. Riding my motorcycle out in the rural areas of Florida, I was worried a long time ago, because you would see hundreds of vote for Trump little lawn things, things you stick in the ground, Trump pins. And I'll tell you, I didn't see not a ne'er one for Hillary Clinton. So even before the election, I could see the way rural America was going. Yeah. And, basically it was very similar to what Obama did to the urban vote and the black vote in 2008, that the, whites, rural whites, such like that, were really fired up and really got behind Trump. And, I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that for however the reason, or for whatever the reason, they were just as fired up in this last election cycle as Blacks and Hispanics were during the election cycle that elected Barack Obama.
Yeah, I think that there was a huge segment of white America that wanted to have the first black president. They wanted to feel better, like, about themselves and their country, that racism was finally behind us. I think that I considered voting for Obama. I voted for Gore, and I voted for Clinton when I first voted. I didn't vote until I had quit, drinking and drugging in '89. So I voted in 92, and I voted for Clinton.
Right.
So I've kind of bounced around between the two parties. Truth is, I voted for Gore, but after 9/11, I was glad Bush was president. I think that changed the landscape in America. I would fall on the side of the fence that says that we were better off as a nation 50 years ago than we are now. So I would rather see us return to traditional Christian values in this country. Obviously, I'm a pastor. I would say that, but I think that the push so far left during the Obama administration resulted in the pendulum swinging so far right. And I think when the Democrats or the left does get in political power again, the swing will be tremendous, even further to the left. And so I think we have entered a self-perpetuating situation that scares me. It worries me that we will never be able to have the conversations that you and I tend to have because we automatically divide each other into groups and label each other as hateful or psycho or whatever we might say to each other when you and I are fooling around.
I agree with that 100%. In that we do many things. First is we label too quickly, and then once a person or a situation has been labeled, it's almost impossible to reverse it. And then we assume that we know so many things about the person from the one label that we've given them.
Yeah.
When that one label speaks nothing to their inner heart or desires, but we think we automatically know them, from sound bites and from the media and such like that. One of the things that we have unlearned in this country, we've unlearned how to disagree. Okay. America used to be a place where two people could disagree and then eventually see a common interest or a common ground and agree to disagree. Well, we no longer do that. We disagree, and I hate you and you hate me. And, I'm going to make paintings and signs against everybody that I think is like you. And I don't want to be around anybody that looks like you. So we've really unlearned to disagree in this country, and it's a shame. I don't see it improving anytime soon. In fact, I probably see it getting worse. I'm not in agreement with the whole Maxine Waters thing, kind of telling people to call out Trump people wherever they may be. I don't, there's an old saying, two wrongs don't make a right. And we have so many wrongs in this country that there's no way that 147 wrongs are going to make a right.
Yeah, and I think that we've throughout history we've rarely found the truth on the fringes. So the bizarre left approach and the bizarre right approach, there's nothing out there. Now, as a middle-aged white guy, I can tell you that something that may be missing from the conversation as you group us all together, not you, but as the media groups us or society groups us all together as a common mind, is we don't feel that way amongst ourselves. So we don't have I think the African-American community has a sense of unity to some degree or to a greater degree. I think women have that. I think certainly the Hispanic community has that, or the Asian community. But white guys like me, we don't think much in those terms. So when we're lumped together like that, we're not even sure what it means. I think that white guys don't feel particularly akin to each other like I would feel towards other Christians, right? I I think I would be inclined to go out of my way for the average Christian, regardless of color, but I would not go out of my way for the average white guy just because we're both white and men and, love guns or whatever it is. So to group as the media and society groups us into groups and there develops then a sense of camaraderie. I don't think traditionally that white guys feel that way. I mean, maybe back in the Ku Klux Klan days, but now I don't mean to sound callous, but there's no other way to say it. I don't care how you're doing. I know white guys that think they have more in common with Donald Trump than they have with the black guy that works in the factory with them. Well, that's ridiculous, right? So you and I, are from the same socioeconomic class, right? We have probably similar backgrounds. So I relate very well to you, but do I relate well to, somebody that makes seven figures and drives a Mercedes? And that, to me, there's no connection there for me.
Well, part of that is the great conning of America. And, it's something that's been going on for decades, but somehow or another, millionaires, politicians have convinced the average American that they're actually on their side. When, quite frankly, your millionaire politician doesn't really care if you're white or black or Hispanic. We're all lumped as the great unwashed.
Yeah.
But somehow, white society, middle class, poor white society, thinks that the politicians have their interests in mind, and it just cracks me up. I think that it's beautifully played, and it's amazing how people remain to be so duped. One of the things you said earlier, you were saying that you don't think that there's as much cohesion in white society as, like blacks have a common interest, and you mentioned also like Asians and such like that. Yeah. And I started to laugh inside because I was like, man, for a group that doesn't have any cohesion, they sure got things going their way.
Well, there's more of
them. Okay, that's the reason. So it's just America.
It is for now, right? So it is historically, it's been a patriarchal society, right? 242 years of it, right? So I think that has begun to dilute. I think that we've also begun to take apart kind of the melting pot mentality in this country. So assimilation has gone away. To your earlier point, I think we are beginning to look at ourselves and each other in very specific class forms, and so we haven't kind of blended like we did traditionally in this country. That if you came to this country, you adopted American values, what you would call American values, and at the time were Christian values and work ethics and things like that. But I think we've moved away from that now.
Well, I mean, it's arguable if we were ever truly there. I mean, it's just like everything else. We like to see the good, and then we kind of sweep the bad and a lot of the truth under the carpet. I mean, there are many a neighborhood in this country that, wouldn't serve Italians, wouldn't serve Irish, what we've done to the Japanese in terms of the internment camps. So it's not like these things didn't exist, and America's forgetting how to include everybody. The truth of the matter is, we've excluded lots of people at different times, and the amount of their inclusion varies as time progresses, but perhaps they're never truly included unless they're of white Anglo-Saxon heritage. But, you could go to Brooklyn and you could see signs, no Jews served. So to say that, at once we were this society that learned how to include everybody, I think it might be best to say that, we learned how to tolerate everybody, and maybe a lot of the tolerant behavior is lessening under Trump. I think that, people have gotten a little bit more nastier. I think that people have gotten less tolerant, but that also occurs because we feel more divided. But I guess what I want to say is, let's not forget that a lot of this isn't new. It just depends on what decade we were talking about and what particular group we're talking about. But I don't think that if you ask a Native American how included he's been, I don't think that he's going to agree with that sentiment too much. And depending on what ethnic group or what race, I think that many of them would share the same sentiment that no, they didn't feel included 3 decades ago or 2 decades ago or 4 decades ago. It changes with the times, and it lessens or worsens with the times.
Well, there you go, guys. That's the first episode ever of the God Logic Project. Hopefully, there's a few more coming. I know there are 2 more parts to this interview coming. That's the first part of 3 part interview with Mike. Smart guy, intelligent guy, thoughtful guy. Hey, if you enjoyed the conversation that we had, please comment in this comment section below. Hit the subscribe button, hit the alert button. I'll let you know when the next episode with Mike Houston comes up, part 2 of 3. Again, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Really trying to get this thing off the ground. So subscribers on YouTube is critical for us. So if you could take a second, subscribe, and encourage other people to do the same. In the meantime, see you next week. God bless, and I hope all is well. Bye.